In terms of knowing guys in the clubhouse, you pitched with Phil in Houston, right?
Yeah.
Who else did you know coming over here?
Trained with Bader in the offseason. I've known Pete for a couple years because living in Tampa and Kyle Tucker and him know each other. So like I've met him quite a few times. Nimmo was actually supposed to go to college with me, but he signed. Also Winker, it's like I played against Winker all through the minor leagues. Like I've known him since we played against each other in like high A. So it's like I've played against him since then.
You've played with more roofs than not, right?
I've never played in a home stadium without a roof.
Do you have a favorite strikeout?
My first one was pretty cool. I got Starlin Castro. I got my second strikeout right after. I got Judge right after that. I wish that was my first one. That'd have been cooler.
Hey, it's Vito Calisi, Jonathan Barron. We're meeting at the Apple. I'm on Twitter at Vito F. Calisi. John's at JMB9191. And we are here with Ryne Stanek, brand new Met. What's it like to be in New York, man? How do you like it so far?
It's cool. It's a lot. It's wildly different from anywhere I've lived before. So still trying to get some footing and finally get some sleep, maybe, because it's been a hectic couple days.
You've played with more roofs than not, right?
I've never played in a home stadium without a roof.
Really? What?
Tampa, Miami,
No, I know.
Houston, Seattle.
Yeah, Houston, Seattle. Where'd you see that? That's a great nugget.
I just thought it as we were talking.
So, like, when you go out there, I mean, you know, facing elements, not facing elements.
It's raining today. Are you nervous?
It's pouring.
No. It's obviously you play on the road a lot, but
you pitched outdoors before once or twice.
Yeah,
in your life.
It was a joke.
Like I've never left the
No,
the
but
roof.
it's interesting. It's
yeah.
interesting.
It's definitely different. This is the first time I've not had a roof. So it's different. It is what it is, but it's fun.
You got to figure out how to spend your time during a rain delay now. You didn't really, when you were at home.
I never had to worry about it.
Never had to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, when Kodai came over here, I believe that in Japan, they like, never play outdoors.
I think there's like one stadium outdoors in Japan.
Really?
But yeah, but like
know
it's
that.
not a big thing at all.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I think it's Japan would be pretty north, like in relationship to the U.S., right? So like,
I believe so.
It would
yeah.
be like a lot of those stadiums. I feel like would probably be pretty cold. So
Oh,
they
yeah,
have to
yeah.
have a roof to like actually play, especially early in the year, late in the year.
So this is another stop in your major league career, like you mentioned. You mentioned all the teams you've played for, and you've pitched for some pretty shrewd organizations, I'd say. Rays, especially Houston. What have you learned along the way in your career before getting here to New York? At the stops you've made.
A lot of things. I mean, very much that it's a business, and especially in organizations that win, it's very much treated like, however we can get X% better, we're going to do that. And that's making tough calls, it's making shrewd trades, it's making moves that may, to the outside, look unpopular. It's like, you do what you have to win. And like, I've been a part of a lot of organizations that do make those moves, and you understand like the business aspect of it substantially more, because it really sucks to see people that you like get traded, get moved, get DFA'd, all of those things. It's tough, and you see like how difficult when people come in, the finding housing, moving around, like
The human being
the
elements
human
of the game.
aspect of it. Yeah, the baseball aspect of it, like, is obviously difficult. It's baseball. It's hard. It's a hard game. But like the other things that nobody else on the outside ever cares about, because like most fans don't actually care about the players as like humans. Like they don't see us as like people. We're just like players, and that's all we are. And like the human aspect of like, hey man, this guy's got 2 kids and a wife, and he's got to move from this city to this city in a day and figure out housing and where to live and like what areas are good, and you have to like talk to everybody and then meet 100 new people like in the first day, and you're sitting there going like, I don't know anybody's name, and you're trying to like figure out your way in a new clubhouse that's already had well-established relationships and friendships and like camaraderie. You're trying to figure out how to like not step on people's toes and like learn the culture, like learn what they do and how you can just kind of fit into that and like have it, you be like an addition as opposed to something that like kind of gets in the way. So you kind of have to like navigate that part of the life on top of the baseball. The baseball is just the baseball. Like you know the way you play and the way the game is played. Like that, obviously not the easy part, but that's the simpler part of the whole dynamic.
In terms of knowing guys in the clubhouse, sorry, Vito, you pitched with Phil in Houston, right? Who else did you know coming over here prior?
trained with Bader in the off season.
Okay, that's a cool guy.
Yeah, it's like I've known Pete for a couple years because living in Tampa, and Kyle Tucker and him know each other. So like I've met him quite a few times. Nimmo was actually supposed to go to college with me, but he signed.
He was committed to Arkansas? I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like I've known Nimmo for a long time.
Like 2010, way back.
Yeah,
Jesse
like a
Winker
long
was
time.
supposed to be a Gator.
I know. I talked to him about that too.
Yeah.
He would have been another Gator we have.
Who's that?
Winker.
Winker, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are you sticking by all the Gators as an SEC guy?
No, but it's
They're all over the sport.
Oh, they're all over the place. But it's like also Winker. It's like I played against Winker all through the minor leagues. Like I've known him since we played against each other in like high A. So it's like I've played against him since then. So like a lot of these guys like I've known for a long time, and obviously playing, this is my 8th year in the big leagues. Like I've played against everybody in the clubhouse. So like even if you don't know them like individually, you know them.
Yeah,
like you know enough about them.
Especially with interleague play. Like,
Yeah,
it's
especially
just not
playing
like it used to be.
everybody. Yeah, playing everybody now, and not instead of having to play like the other like
One
whatever
random division that's
every
chosen
3
that year,
years. Yeah, you get way more familiarity with a lot of different people doing that now, and there's way more crossover. So
You know, I got a question for you. When players get traded, is there ever like a thought of like, oh, should I just hit up the guy I got traded for and see if we could just swap apartments?
Dude, that happened.
oh, it happens all the time.
It happened.
It happens all the time.
John Neese and Neil Walker swapped apartments, Pittsburgh
did?
and New York.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Because it's just the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, I have a free place, you have a free place, let's just switch.
When Maton in particular, Maton got traded from Cleveland to Houston, and Miles Straw got traded from Houston to Cleveland.
You're good.
Yeah, they like Phil jumped into their apartment.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know that about Neese and Neil Walker?
I probably heard it, but like
yeah.
I just
Yeah,
like,
it was like a big thing at the time.
yeah,
It makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, and like especially because most guys that are here to start kind of get good information on where the best places to live and the places to definitely avoid and the places that are like best for families. It kind of depends. If you have a family, you get traded for like a single dude with a 1-bedroom apartment or a studio. You're like, well, I got 2 kids. That ain't gonna work. So like sometimes it doesn't work, but like if the family situations are pretty similar, yeah, like those are like best case scenario type deals.
There should be like a message board, I think, where like all the guys
Slack
can compare
channel.
a Slack channel, compare notes.
Yeah.
You know, like each city has its own sub channel.
Greenfly, but for like finding apartments.
Seriously, because it's
This could be a money making idea, by the way. We could be
might
onto something.
Because dude, that's been the hardest thing since I've been here. Like I'm like obviously August we're only home for like
9 games, Ryan.
nine
That's
games
it.
in 10 days, but like
You
I've
save
been-
rent money by not getting a place.
yeah, well, and you're sitting there
Airbnb,
going like, dude, I don't know where to live. Like I don't like I've only ever been to New York to play.
Have you figured it out yet?
No.
Vito will help you after.
can help
Vito's
you out.
Mr.
Yeah,
New York.
no, I'd appreciate some insight because like it's something where like it's stressful. Like we're in like a normal hotel room with 2 kids and my wife, and we're like I don't know where to
Well,
go.
I can give you some tips.
Vito's
when we
got
get-
you.
Please.
I'm from here.
Would love-
I'm born
would
here.
love it.
I'm bred by it.
We'll
Yeah.
wrap up and Vito will like hook it up. I first remember you with the Rays when you first came up.
Tampa.
And you were in my, I was younger back then. We all were. You were the OG opener.
Yeah.
The concept of the opener was really a thing in MLB. I'd say like 2016, 2017. Kevin Cash and Ryne Stanek was the guy that would go out and throw that first inning for the Rays. And we were talking before we started. You kind of made Major League history. There was a streak that Jacob deGrom had of consecutive starts with 2 earned runs or fewer allowed. And it was like the longest by a traditional starting pitcher. And I used to work MLB Network as a researcher, so I was all over this stuff. And you do the play index search on Baseball Reference, and Ryne Stanek's name would always be number 1 because you'd always throw the first inning and you'd always put up a 0.
Yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
I mean, it's cool because it's just like such an absurd stat. Like a lot of those things, like I think I've ended up with a couple like weird records like that because because of the situation and like there's always an asterisk by it going like of people that weren't doing this, these are the actual people that did it. Yeah, these are the people that actually qualify, and then there's me. So it's cool, but like I don't know, it's kind of just a fun bit of trivia, I guess, more so than anything else.
Did you enjoy opening? And I've asked other relief pitchers this: the difference between pitching in the 6th inning, the 7th inning, the 8th inning, the 9th inning. Are those 3 outs harder than the first 3 outs of a game, or the middle outs bridging to the back end of the bullpen?
Yeah.
Like, the mindset of getting any set of outs, but when they come in the course of a game?
It's just so different. Like all of the jobs and all of the innings like have different difficulties, and they have different things that like make that inning difficult. Like the first inning is like for a reliever is the whole build-up process. Like because like you're sitting there like it's funny because like as a reliever, like the anxiety to like the performance anxiety to like get ready and like that like go mode doesn't really like kick in until like the starter's gone through the lineup a couple times to where like like okay, it's getting closer to that time. But like as an opener or like starting like that, it builds all day because you're sitting there going like, all right, well I've only got an inning, or I've got 4 hitters, or I've got I got whoever I'm facing 1 through 5 until like the next guy comes in. So it's like this is the game plan, this is the attack plan, this is what I'm trying to do. And instead of it starting if a game starts at 7, that mentality starting at 8:30 to like get ready to go, it starts at noon when you start thinking about the game and you're like, oof. Like the build up is different.
You got more hours to think about it.
Yeah, you because like there's so much variance when you're actually in the bullpen, because like, well, it could be 1, 2, 3, it could be 6, 7, 8, it could be 8, 9, 1. When you're starting, it's 1, 2, 3. Like you're facing those guys the whole time, and it's everything's like there's no easy job or harder job. They're just different. Like everything builds differently based on what's the flow of the game.
It's interesting.
So before we get you out of here, I learned something about you. So you're from St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up a Cardinals fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're named, though, after Ryne Stanek,
Mm-hmm.
which is wild. And we were talking about this before, because that would be like if John and I were named after like Chipper Jones or something.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind that?
My dad was a Cardinal fan growing up, like in St. Louis, like obviously always watching the Cardinals play the Cubs. He loved watching Ryne Stanek play. My parents knew they wanted to name me Ryan, but then my dad was like, we could spell it like that. It's like, so yeah, it just kind of ended up being like that, kind of like after him, but also to be Ryan as well. Yeah.
I do get the aspect of like respecting watching somebody from another team, because like there's like a very, very famous Mets division rival right now that like I do like watching.
I'm not naming a kid Bryce, I'll tell you that.
I'm not saying I'm going to name a kid Bryce, but like I do like watching Bryce Harper.
I don't know.
He does not feel the same.
I mean, I don't know.
You've said it before.
He's really good. I'll say that.
You said he's good for the game. You said he's fun to watch.
Who's the best hitter that you have to face? Like, if there's one guy you don't want to face, I know that might be a tough, but you actually pitch. We're just sitting here on the couch with microphones.
Dude, there's so many good hitters in the game now. I really don't know. Off the top of my head. There's really
a strikeout.
A favorite strikeout?
It's a good one.
Oof. I don't know. My first one was pretty cool.
Who was it?
I got Starlin Castro.
Nice.
Yeah. I got my second strikeout right after. I got Judge right after that. I wish that was my first one. That'd have been cooler.
Was it in the Bronx or in Tampa?
In Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cowbell's going crazy everywhere.
DJ Kitty getting the place. Yeah.
Do you like DJ Kitty? DJ Kitty's like one of my favorite mascots.
I didn't know what DJ Kitty was until I got to the big leagues there, and then I was like, dude, what is this?
I think the players did it themselves.
Did they? I have no idea. I have no idea where it came from or the origin story of that.
My friend who's a Rays fan told me that like the players were sick of watching Keyboard Cat. Like the old school, the old like Keyboard Cat thing that would play. And then they used to play in the scoreboard, and they were like, yo, let's just get our own one. And they brought out DJ Hero and just had a cat do it. And it was just like an organic, like, we don't like this anymore, let's do this.
There you go. The more you know.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, because at the time, I'm sure that was like when Joe was managing and all the players were like, all the guys were there. They were just doing weird things. Yeah. So yeah, like that really wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Did you have this guy?
Did you play at Citi Field when the Rays and Yankees had to play here?
Yeah, that was the weirdest series I've ever been a part of. Like we dodged a hurricane down there, and we're the home team. So
you have so it really is
the thumbs down, man.
But it really is your first home stadium without a roof, like in every way.
In every sense of the word.
It was meant to be, Ryan. It was meant to be.
Apparently so.
Well, dude, thanks so much for joining us. You can follow this podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Vito F. Khaleesi, John at JMB9191. And Ryan, thanks so much, man, and we're looking forward to the rest of the year.
And he'll come up with the New York recommendations after the show.
We get off. I can't let people know where he's
I know.
All right, that was our interview with Ryne Stanek. And, Stanek rhymes with panic, and Mets fans, I feel like some of you are panicking right now. And I just want to say there's light at the end of the tunnel. You don't need to I know it's been a while. It's been a while since this team has lost the series. Everything's been riding high for the last month and a half since late May. It's baseball, baby. Things are going to have peaks and valleys, John. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. By the way, hello. This is the first time we've done one of these in a while, by the way. We haven't gone full virtual. This is a first in a long time. So we're back on that. And look, here's what I'd say right now. I think that frustration is totally understandable, warranted. I think that the 26 guys in the clubhouse probably would have liked a different result over the weekend in Orange County. But like you said, it's baseball. And, I think one good place to start here is by putting this into context and looking at a couple other results we've seen in semi-recent times to help us understand what we just witnessed. First of all, the Mets lose a couple one-run games. One-run games are often a coin flip. The Mets have had a lot of success in one-run games this year. You're bound to lose some. Number two, let's put it in the context of the Angels against other opponents who are in playoff fights right now. The Seattle Mariners have played the LA Angels 7 times since the start of July. Now, I know these two teams are a little bit different. The Mariners added. The Angels got rid of Carlos Estevez, but bear with me here. The Angels have won 6 of those 7 games against the first-place team in the American League West right now. And don't forget, this weekend plus Thursday, it was a 4-game series, the Atlanta Braves split 4 at home with the Miami Marlins. So this is part of the journey. This is part of the path. The Mets, this is a big road trip. Not saying it's not, but the next road trip when the Mets go to San Diego for 4 and Arizona for 3, that's going to be a big road trip. Those head-to-head games with the teams that they are directly jostling with. So, again, yes, you're not wrong for thinking taking 2 of 3 against an Angels team that I'm not trying to tell you is good. It's not a good team. But it's a team that has pride. And we kept talking about this all year, Vito. You cannot say we have a quote-unquote easy schedule ahead. It doesn't exist in Major League Baseball. There's just too much talent in this league.
Yeah, John, and you brought up the Braves playing the Marlins, and remember, that's a Marlins team that was just completely depleted at the trade deadline. Jazz Chisholm doesn't play on that Marlins team anymore. Their biggest weapon on that team, he's playing over in the Bronx right now, and that reminds me a lot of last year or 2 years ago when the Mets played the Nationals right at the trade deadline, and that angry Nationals team came out because you got a bunch of players who were like, oh, our team just gave up on us. We need to get out there. We need to fight for some wins right now. But as John said, look, we never once on the podcast said this was going to be an easy, fun ride through the end of September. All we've said is this is going to be important baseball games, and it's hold on to your butt season. And that's fun. Wouldn't you rather be watching games with the most tension and the most just interest in what's happening as opposed to just not giving a damn because the season's already over at this point? I mean, if you had to make a choice in May to care about this Angels series right now or not, wouldn't you rather be completely invested in it?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And look, there were some good things that happened in this Angels series that I want to talk about briefly here. And one of those was Paul Blackburn and his Mets debut. And Blackburn, what we saw from him compared to what we've seen from Blackburn prior to the trade was a guy who used his cutter a whole lot more. He dropped the usage of his 4-seam fastball. He used his changeup a little bit more, and he had a lot of success with those 2 pitches. So it looks like the Mets are taking Paul Blackburn, and they're trying to utilize some of his weapons a little bit differently than he was using them while he was with Oakland. And it paid off, 6 innings, and a really good debut for Paul Blackburn, who will now leave the West Coast because he made his last 2 starts at Angel Stadium. And then David Peterson on Saturday night. David Peterson, once again, completing 6 innings. He's allowed 3 runs or fewer in 9 of his 11 starts this season. And Jose Quintana on Sunday, he pitched a good ball game. Certainly did not give it, or certainly gave his team a chance to win the game. And so it wasn't the starting pitching. The Mets weren't getting pulverized by the Angels in these 3 games. And I've seen this floated on Twitter, and I want to talk about this as well. And that's the Mets' contributions or their output with runners in scoring position, not just in this series over the weekend, but going back further to right before the All-Star break. And right now, the Mets, since the All-Star break, since that July 14th game, are hitting 186 with runners in scoring position. That's a number that you saw a lot in the post-game show. If you watched it, I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter. But I want you to consider a couple things here when you think about the way that the numbers have worked out for the Mets with runners in scoring position. From May 31st through July 13th, a span of 38 games, the Mets as a team were slashing 316, 403, and 601 in 415 plate appearances with RISP Vito. Like massive, those are Aaron Judge type numbers that the Mets were putting up with runners in scoring position. Since then, as I said, 186 batting average, 646 OPS. The league average in batting average and OPS with runners in scoring position, 255 and 751. So right now, the Mets are underperforming that league average. And for a long time before that, they were blowing that league average away. So what does this tell us? It tells us that the Mets are going to regress positively from where they are right now. It tells us they were due to regress from where they were for close to 40 games, the way they were hitting with runners in scoring position. And if you take the entirety of that span, the Mets, 278 batting average, 898 OPS with runners in scoring position from May 31st through Sunday's game in Anaheim. So Mets fans and the team have been getting their money's worth and then some with runners in scoring position. This has not been a bad team with RISP. This is a team that has hit a tough time with runners in scoring position. That happens over the course of a baseball season. And we know, based on simple math and law of averages, that the Mets are due to have a little bit more success than what they are having currently. So keep the faith, Mets fans. It's all good. Sorry, Vito.
Well, I don't know why you're apologizing to me. I mean, I need the listener to understand that
I'm gonna have a cherry right now.
That I
Go
get
ahead.
these diatribes that John will go on. I'll also get them sometimes via text. I'll get them like before we hop on and talk. And I feel like they always make me feel good. Like when John goes deep on the numbers with me, and like it's kind of like that meme from last year of, "Oh, Buck, you're gonna make me believe again." Every time John throws one of those out there, that's how I feel.
Which meme are we talking about, Vito?
I
Are we
don't
talking
want
about
to
the
go
one I
deep
think we're
in.
talking about?
It is the one, but I need to go deep into it. It's a meme, anybody could go find a meme out there. John, the only
If you
thing
know,
that would
you
have made
know.
that explanation better is if you started it off with like, I don't know, like, what if I told you?
All right. Anyway, you have anything else to say on the Angel series, or shall we move on to the road ahead for the Mets here?
No, dude, you said it perfectly. I mean, look, Paul Blackburn is Paulie punch outs, as he's been known to be called now, and I think Mets fans are going to attach onto that one. I mean, you saw the pie chart that they showed on SNY when he went out there of all the different pitches he throws. He's a kitchen sink guy, and it's going to be really cool to see him pitch at Citi Field with that pitch mix and deep down into the stretch. Also, just a big shout out to David Peterson, who had another really solid start. Only allowed 3 runs or fewer in 9 of his 11 starts. So David Peterson just has been a workhorse ever since he came back from that hip surgery.
He has been. Another workhorse for the Mets has been Sean Manaea, who's going to be on the mound on Monday, not night, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 4 Eastern local time. And I know that it's kind of a weird situation for the Mets. Of course, they're making up the game from early May in St. Louis. That was rained out. But to make matters a little bit more fair, I think, is a way of putting it, the Cardinals, Vito, it's we're recording this right now, 7:24 on Sunday night. And the Cardinals just started a game with the Cubs at Wrigley Field. So the Cardinals also have a little bit of a challenging road ahead for them. Getting back to St. Louis, of course, the Mets, a longer flight, but it's not like the Cardinals have been sitting at Busch Stadium, played a 140 game, and are just awaiting the Mets. But when those two teams do meet on Monday, it'll be Sean Manaea going for the Mets, coming off of one of his best starts. I think his best start of the season, 11 strikeouts over 7 shutout innings. So it'll be a huge test for Sean Manaea.
As far as Sean Manaea starts go, it's hard to compare any other start to that. Like 11 strikeouts, just totally dominant. Like it, like hopefully you hope a pitcher can ride the high off of that and bring it into the next start. And John, did you see only one pitcher headed out to Coors early?
No, I did not. Who was that pitcher? Was it Luis
I believe
Severino?
it was Sevy. Sevy was the only one who went over there. And you know what's cool about this? We're going from Busch to Coors. So we're going on the beer
Wow,
tour right now.
that is a really, really great point. I love that. It's true.
How many?
And you know what?
Those are the only. Oh, wait, Miller's not Miller anymore, right?
No, it's American. I think it's American Life Field, I believe. An insurance company bought the name to the ballpark in Milwaukee.
Are those the only
Hmm.
two beers left? Is it Coors and Busch? Are they the only ones?
You put me on the spot here.
I'm gonna say they're the only ones. I don't think there's any.
They're the only ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we've got
this is
the Mets.
This is the great beer tour.
This is the great beer tour. So maybe on Monday night, have a Bud Heavy, possibly. No, you know what? Only have Corona and Coors Light. That's it.
Did you go to the Budweiser tour when you went to St. Louis or no?
I did not. I did not.
Did anybody?
Not that I know of. My biggest
dude.
touristy trip was I walked past the arch. That was about all I got.
I didn't even go to the arch, dude. I saw the arch from the ballpark and I was like, that's enough for me. But the beer tour was fun. If I get to go back to Denver at some point, I think I would definitely do the Coors tour there. But yeah, so Mets are getting ready for this one game in St. Louis, which is a pretty important game. I mean, this is basically a playoff game, just like you saw that playoff game type energy in St. Louis. I mean, in Wrigley for Sunday Night Baseball. So really important one game tiebreaker defining game because, you know, we've split the game so far up to this point. And I'm really excited to see the energy at this game because we know that Cardinals fans show up. We know that there's a good amount of Mets fans who will make it out to Cardinals games too, because it's like such a beloved ballpark. It's in the middle of the summer. I mean, this game has the chance to be really high energy and a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, and like you said, a really important game when the Cardinals came to Citi Field back in late April. They took 2 of 3. The Mets took the first 2 from the Cardinals in what turned into a 2-game series back in early May. So yeah, it'll be a huge series. And Andre Palante, as you heard on the broadcast today, he'll be making the start. He was a guy who was supposed to be out of the Cardinal rotation when they had acquired Eric Fetty from the White Sox. Then Lance Lynn goes down, and Andre Palante right back in the rotation. Cardinals also acquired Tommy Pham from the White Sox at the trade deadline, and Pham has been incredible since returning to the place where he really broke out. 2017 was the season where Tommy Pham became a really, really, really notable good Major League ball player. Cardinals trade back for him as they try to make their push. And as we mentioned, they are wrapping up their 3-game weekend series at Wrigley Field against the Chicago Cubs. And after St. Louis, the Mets then, as has been well documented, will travel to Coors Field, as Vito poignantly put it, the second stop on the beer trip. And this is a Rockies team that when you go to Coors Field, you guys know this, anything can happen in those ball games. Runs, of course, at a premium, or runs aplenty, I should say. The Rockies had the reigning National League Player of the Month, Brenton Doyle, who hit 11 home runs, who put on a show at Citi Field, as did Michael Toglia, who hit 4 home runs in that series at Citi Field right before the All-Star break. You saw what the Rockies did to the Red Sox, putting up a 20 spot against them a little bit ago. So it's going to be a tougher series than I think a lot of people anticipate, just like we saw with the Mets and the Angels, because these teams that are quote-unquote out of the playoff race, and there aren't too many of them in baseball, but there are a handful, and the Mets are playing 2 in a row when it comes to series. These young players, they're tricky. They're hungry. And I don't say tricky as in they're pulling tricks. I say tricky as in the league isn't as familiar and aware of their tendencies. So you got to be careful in these I don't want to call them games that you might be inclined to overlook, but games against teams that are out of the race that have a lot to play for, because a lot of these guys are playing for their major league lives, Vito. That's just the way it is.
I mean, dude, me and you, our childhood were defined by 2 Mets seasons, 07 and 08. Both of those seasons destroyed by a Marlins team that was obviously completely out of it because it was game 162. The Marlins team, they weren't trying to fight a way into the playoffs. They were just trying to spoil the Mets, the Mets playoffs in that moment. It's like you said, sometimes those teams that aren't in anymore, You got 26 angry dudes on a team who want to be winning baseball games, who want to be in a playoff race, who are just trying to prove themselves. So, look, this is an important stretch. It's hold on to your butts territory, like I said before. And one guy that we got to keep an eye on in this series on the Mets side is Brandon Nimmo, who even though Brandon Nimmo's from Wyoming, the way that region shakes up, this is Brandon Nimmo's hometown team. Brandon Nimmo grew up going to Rockies games, grew up a fan of the Rockies, and he's played really well at Coors over the years, right, John?
He has, as everyone knows, he not only is a Rocky fan, but has dominated the Rockies to the tune of a 1084 OPS at Coors Field. Brandon has played 17 games in his career at Coors Field. The first game, he went hitless, and he has hit safely in 16 straight games at Coors Field since then. He's also had a lot of success at Busch Stadium. You think about the big home run he hit in that comeback victory. I believe it was April 22nd, 2022, when the Mets pulled off the comeback in St. Louis, and then he had a huge home run, a game-tying 3-run home run back in St. Louis back in early May. So Brandon seemed to wake up a little bit, had the 3-hit night in LA. And yes, like you said, Brandon Nimmo, definitely a guy to keep an eye on to carry some of the freight offensively for the Mets, not just on Monday in St. Louis, but also Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as they make their way to Denver, Colorado.
So Mets are going to Denver after St. Louis. We get that 5 o'clock game. Then Denver, the times are, they're not full West Coast times. We're not getting the 10 o'clock LA starts that you'll get if they're playing the Dodgers or the Padres. We're getting like 9 o'clock starts, so that's a little better. Maybe you'll be asleep by 11. Before we get out of here, John, there is one thing I want to mention. I was actually at Citi Field last night because I won tickets to see ATs.
You got to say the day of the week. You can't say last night. You got to say Saturday.
Sorry, you're right. Saturday night, I was at Citi Field for the ATs concert. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I was not familiar with ATs. I won tickets and I was like, this seems like a fun thing to go do.
Ask you, like, how familiar are you with this band?
Zero. I did not know a single song. So the weather was pretty rough yesterday. What I did was we drove to the concert and then we just sat in the car until it was like time to like go in, just keeping an eye on Twitter. And in the car, I listened to some of the songs. So I knew like 2 or 3 of the songs by the time I got in. If you had to say to me, what was your favorite song before walking in, it was Work. Their song about, making money. But dude, John, I cannot tell you how electric this show was. Dude, these guys are like, these guys are so popular and so over. Dude, this stadium was the loudest. Like, I would say it was even louder than 2015 in there.
I could tell, and full disclosure, Vito did not tell me any of this, so I can tell how genuine your feelings are and how much fun you had. I know you were texting. The last text I received from you on Saturday night was something about like, this is the most electric thing I've ever witnessed in my life.
I said, this is the most hype thing I've ever been to in my life. Dude, like, first of all, everybody in the stadium, like all the fans, they buy these wands that change colors. Like we've seen those at games before, like the Rangers and the Knicks have them,
but not
the
wands,
fans,
like not a holdable.
No, not a hold. Like the fans buy these globe wands and like they all have them. And like, dude, like there was so much like theatrics. Like there were like, first of all, I don't know why I'm saying first of all, this is like the 7th thing I've said, but dude, there's 10 of them. Like there's 10 dudes in the band. And then there's like 20 background dancers. And then like the background dancers kept like pretending they were like cops or something. And then they would like kidnap the musicians. Dude, this is like, there was like a narrative structure that I could not follow. At the end of the concert, one of the dudes put on a Mets hat. That was pretty lit. And then another dude put on a City Connect jersey. And then he gave this incredible 5-minute monologue about like how his grandparents recently passed and like time is fleeting and we all need to appreciate the moments we have with each other. And I screamed out, "Let's go Mets."
Well done. It sounds like a great time. Did they do the whole did they do the whole set list or did they cut it off?
I think they according to fans around me who I heard talking, I think they only missed like 2 songs because of
the band. Yeah.
Because the rain delay. But dude, it was just crazy to be at like I was in Citi Field for hours, and I was probably one of maybe I probably, you could probably count the amount of Mets fans on your hand.
Yeah,
there was nobody. I don't think anybody else was like me.
checking the score of the Angels game like I was throughout the concert.
They didn't have the out-of-town scoreboard on? I'm kidding. I know the answer to that question.
You want to hear something?
Well, I'm glad you had a
was
good time.
It would be cool if I was like, oh, it'd be cool if the scoreboard was. But dude, I didn't even realize that like the gigantic, beautiful Citi Field scoreboard doesn't even get used for the concerts. I never put that together.
No, it's black. No, it's black.
The stage is in front of it, blocking it. I always thought that the scoreboard would be like almost like a plus, like an enticing factor for the bands coming in of like, oh, we could use the screen, but they're like, get that screen out of here.
Yeah, too bright. That thing is off and black, and I mean, there's tons of lights brought in, obviously by it's hung on the truss. So yeah, it's better off that way. It sets a nice scene.
Great concert. The fans showed up, dude, for this band. Like, it was really cool. It was really cool to see Citi Field rocking. And the final thing I want to say before we get out of here, not about AT.
I have one thing also, by the way. I have one thing about the Mets. You go. You want me to go first?
I'll just say my thing, and then we'll wrap up with the Mets.
Sure. Go ahead.
I just want to give a shout out to our intern Ty, who wrapped up his time with us a few days ago. Ty was our intern from, I think, May all the way until last week, and just did a phenomenal job. He's going back to Vanderbilt. Before that, he's going on a road trip. But like this summer, Ty made this summer so much easier for John and I. Was an amazing help, and made this summer an incredible amount of fun. Came in not even being that big of a Mets fan, and left telling me that like he literally watched every Mets game every night, and like is watching highlights for every Dodgers, Yankees, like every single game. He's just completely locked in now.
I second that. Ty was awesome. He did not eat nearly as much sushi as he claimed he could. The only disappointment I had with Ty the entire Ty experience. But yeah, Ty is great, and Ty will be back. Check.
Yeah,
we'll talk to Ty.
Unless he's running a $1 billion water company by then.
But what I wanted to bring up was Brandon Sproat being promoted to AAA over the weekend after on Friday night, he struck out 13 batters, including the last 11 guys he faced in what turned out to be his last start for AA Binghamton. And, we talked to David Stearns about Brandon Sproat back in May when we interviewed him 2 interviews ago. We recently caught up with David. If you did not listen or watch that, make sure you do so wherever you get your Meet at the Apple podcast or on the Mets YouTube page. But we asked David about the possibility of another promotion for Brandon Sproat and whether he is someone who could be in the mix possibly with the Mets as early as 2024. And he told us the double promotion in a season is not so common. He didn't say no, but he said that. And it turned out that Brandon Sproat has been double promoted, and that's because how dominant he was at AA after a dominant stint at high A. You can argue he was even more dominant at AA than he was at the level beneath it. And now there's only one level separating Brandon Sproat from the major leagues. Again, not sitting here telling you that Brandon Sproat will or will not pitch in the major leagues this season. He's probably nearing an inning number that the Mets might not want to fly by too dramatically. So that's something to consider here. But Brandon Sproat being promoted, definitely big news over the weekend that I don't want to let pass by, because that's major. This guy has really cemented himself as one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball, and he's going to be wearing orange and blue, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, no, you were right, John. There's no way we couldn't mention that Brandon Sproat promotion. And if you want to go check out an interview we did with Brandon Sproat on the Mets YouTube, it's Future of Flushing. We did it with him back in spring training. We're hoping to talk with Brandon again soon. We just got to figure out where he is. He keeps moving. So we gotta just like figure out a location.
Good thing we didn't go to Somerset. We were talking about going to see the Rumble Ponies in Somerset this week. And next thing you know, Brandon's not going to be there anymore. So not that there aren't other very exciting prospects at AA Binghamton, but Brandon Sproat won't be there.
No, so we'll figure it out. We want to talk to him again soon. As well as like we want to talk to a lot of the minor leaguers that we've come to be fans of. We want to talk to Dom again, talk to Mike again, Nolan McLean. There's a ton of guys on this Mets player development system that deserve some spotlight, some shine. But thank you all for listening. Look, this is going to be a big week, a big few weeks coming up, big 2 months coming up We want to see you all at Citi Field, but we want to see you all on Twitter in the meantime. Anytime you're watching a game, feel free to tweet at me, myself, or John. I'm at Vito F. Khaleesi. John is at JMB9191. Feel free to tweet along games with us. We're always watching. We're always paying attention. We're always scrolling. You can follow this Twitter on You can follow this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, as well as the Mets YouTube page. And thank you all for listening, and we'll meet you again at the Apple.
Keep the faith, everybody.